Those people who did the test and then go on to be closers, they're in the top 30% of our performance. So if you can get this right at the beginning, you can remove the cost of bad hiring down the line. It is actually your testing pool for the future superstars of your organisation.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is incredible that you have such a high, I guess that you've achieved the diversity goals that companies talk about, right? So sort of this 50-50, but that's only one dimension of diversity. I certainly think that diversity is more than just having men and women on equal or more parity in terms of representation. I want to talk about a couple of things. The first is sort of how have you achieved it? And you've talked a little bit about removing gender bias in your applications, but I think there's some other things that I've read about that I found really impressive that are happening at Outreach and perhaps have happened in other organizations you've worked with around parental leave policies. I was particularly impressed that it's not just about providing dads or the second parent with a chunk of time off as well, but things like providing meals a couple nights a week and covering that expense so that families aren't as frantic around trying to make dinner when you're going back to work, giving them a transition period back into work at 50-50. All those things must go down really well with your population. Do you find that policies like that are also helping you in attracting a diverse set of employees?
Yeah, I mean, from organisationally speaking, absolutely. It's very easy to write a set of core values for an organisation. It's far more difficult for that to expose itself in each and everything that we do. And so, some of our core values are we've got your back, and the other one is we absolutely relish in diversity and inclusion. If you look at our CEO Manny, he's an immigrant into the US and is managing to build a fantastic company. It's not lost on him the opportunity that he's been given, and how he wants that to be portrayed as part of the business. He also has spoken in the past, and I've fallen foul of this, which is we can hire people like ourselves very quickly. Funnily enough, we like people like us. And
it's validating,
and that can kind of cause this tunnel vision. There's some emerging thoughts around cognitive diversity in the workplace, which sounds very fancy, but ultimately it's basically saying, make sure you've got good variety. If you've got good variety, it's from that you can create a healthy corporate culture.
Yeah, well, and that's sort of the dimensions that I was referring to earlier, that it's not just about having men and women. There is then different ethnicities or races or backgrounds, but you've also got socioeconomic backgrounds, different educations. I mean, if we hire men and women in equal parts, but they all come from Cambridge and all studied the same thing, they're still going to think very similarly. But the more we can get people from different walks of life, different areas, having come through different exciting adventures in their life, then we're going to have a broader set of thinking inside of our organization, which means we solve problems more quickly, we tend to be more profitable. And I think perhaps most importantly, and I know you're really passionate about the customer, we look like our customers. We sound like them. They can relate to us as individuals, as well as to the products or services that we're selling. Have you found that you're able to do that more, having a population of salespeople who is more diverse?
100%. Yeah, I can't agree with that, any more fundamentally. Again, by using some of these more unusual techniques, also competency-based hiring, which Amar Roberge made, famous in his book from the HubSpot build-out. We're not looking at somebody's schooling necessarily. We're looking at their ability to do a job or a function within an organisation, and for them to grow. If you look at Vista Equity Partners, who are very vociferous in private equity, but buying tech companies in particular. Exactly was acquired by them. Aptio were acquired by them, so I've kind of had a bit of experience.
Is that foreshadowing?
When you again look at how they're building out those organisations, those companies, they are looking for 70% of the workforce to come from what they call HEPLs, high potential experience low. And educational background is only a 3% indicator to future success. there are other things to look for in the employment world that have a huge impact.
I think if you look at most executives in most companies, you'd find a very small percentage of them went to, say, the top schools.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably resilient, hardworking, tenacious, overcomers, aren't they? It's more about their attitude and their mindset than it is necessarily about their credentials, though having a great background in education certainly helps.
Sure.
I know we've been going for a bit now, and I want to ask, before we close off, you said 54% women on your SDR team, and a lot of companies are struggling to attract the candidates. So it's not that they aren't wanting to hire them, they're finding that even the people that walk through the door, they're not getting enough diversity to make that a reality. You've talked a little bit about some of the methods that you use, but I'm curious, is there something specifically that you've done to help bring that number in balance and also to keep those ladies? I think there's some special things that you guys may be doing to help encourage women in business workplace.
Yeah, so we have OWN, which is the Outreach Women's Network, which is a body internally that we use to help develop and encourage progression through the organisation in that way. Manny's been very good at hiring a diverse board and a management team as well. So my boss, the COO, Anna, obviously female, CMO, she's female. This is just about recognising, to get the right person for the role. There isn't an agenda to have a certain set of percentages. But why do we find it easier? Or why do other companies find it easier? It's the little things. How we spoke just before this, the filming started around how you write job adverts. Actually, is the language in it male or female dominated? Where is it advertised? How do you reach out to those people? Are you using folks within a network that has access to them? How do you interview? Are you removing unconscious bias from the process? How do you develop? How do you coach people within the organisation? It's a lot more than just putting a number to it. I think you'll find now here within the UK, there are a ton of companies that I'm working with, friendly with, within CSO, for example, and with other thought leading networks, where at this pinnacle where people are really focused on kind of making the best of this industry, this really isn't a challenge anymore. But it's up to us as kind of the exponents of this to make sure that goes to the masses. And doesn't just get seen as a pet project, because the potential is enormous. I'll leave you with some final stats from that big data. So the big data shows that female salespeople stay longer in a business, they sell more, and yet unfortunately they get paid 4% less, and they have slightly higher quotas. And when you know that, you then start to think, well, and female sales leaders, actually their teams perform markedly better than teams led by men. So if you know this as a leader, you can't ignore it. And you have to look at all of the areas to decide, okay, where do we make those changes? And what tooling can we put in place to support that? What environments, what changes, what processes can we do to put in place? Because it makes good business sense.
It does. But I think the point that you made about, at the end of the day, we want the best person for the job, and that's good for the candidate, right? And it's really good for the business. I have been asked as a female leader and an executive in sales, which is not common, not as common as it will be soon enough. But a young woman asked, well, how do we, what are you going to do to help us get to the levels that you're at? And my answer to her was, well, we do have mentoring programs and we have all these different things, but my number one responsibility is to make you the most qualified person for the job.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be through, the tools, the training, the empowerment, the support, the culture, the way that we compensate people so that they stay, that they feel like this is a place they can grow and flourish in their career. I think that's the most important thing as leaders that we can do, is raise up really qualified people and hire people that can potentially take our jobs.
Sure.
You mentioned several individuals that you're proud to see that have gone on to do great things. I think that's a sign of a great leader. And in sales, we always want to see that star rise and actually continue to do well and be a great testimony to sort of what we've done in our roles. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. You've covered a lot of really great ground. I think our listeners will walk away, asking themselves some good questions about how are they leveraging the SDR role, how are they bringing talent in and creating diverse environments where the organization can flourish and they can serve their customers better. Have you had any parting thoughts around all the things that we've discussed? What do you think are a couple important kernels for people to keep with them?
Oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that question.
I know.
I was getting ready to say thank you for having me, and I look forward to the beauty of how CSO is set up as the opportunity to network and dig into these subjects further.
Yeah.
I think that would be my point. Is it can be very easy on an interview like this to make it sound glib, easy, and there's a couple of quick fixes. There's not. There's detail in it.
Yeah.
A bit like running a startup. If you don't have the passion, you can't get through the pain of doing it. There's a lot of time, effort, resource and money goes into these things. And I'm more than happy to spend time with the members at our next event in March, talking about this over dinner. Yeah, certainly.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me in.
You bet.